Hey, it's Adam. Thanks for checking out Wabi-sabi Podcast. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're a returning guest, welcome back as well. Again, trying to get a flow going of a chat, ideally once a week. So thanks for bearing with me. I still have my Patreon ongoing. It is the best and currently only way to support the podcast directly, starting as low as $1 a month. And I believe starting at $5 a month, there is a gift of artwork that I will be sending out every year to patrons starting at $5 a month. I believe the tiers go up to $25 a month with more benefits as well. And speaking of Patreon, which by the way can be reached at patreon.com/wabi-sabi podcast. This week I'm speaking to my first Patreon supporter and friend, Ben Guerrette. He's the creative director at Pixite Apps, which is a company based down in San Diego that make incredible apps for iOS and Android, a lot of creativity and expression to be explored through their apps. I've been using them for years, since 2012, and even became a beta tester for them as well in 2013 when I started developing my friendship with Ben. He is the creative director at Pixite, amongst other things. He's also a dad, husband, a lighting designer. He's got many superpowers. And I'll save my last comment on this conversation about Ben, which I'll wait for you listeners to hear at the very end of the show. And I think we're going to start exploring something together. So, without further ado, here's Ben. How about yourself?
I'm good. I just got out of a meeting that didn't quite go as I expected it to, but that is what it is, right?
Isn't it? I was, and I apologize for being a few minutes slow to the call, but
I think it's my fault.
No. I was just I was catching up unexpectedly with one of my oldest friend who's living in Tokyo, as an expat, and hearing some of the, everybody has their trials and tribulations. As a parent, he's also a parent, married, has a son, and you're just hearing some of what's going on over there. And I was just it was this funny moment of I didn't expect this conversation to go here, but I'm so happy that it did because it's so real. But I also have to get off because I have this call right now. So to be continued, and it's that's fine. That's just the way it's going. But
yeah, no, it's funny. Those conversations are super helpful, or sorry, not helpful. They're super healthy and super important. I think for everybody, for sort of, it sounds like maybe your friend needed that conversation.
Sure.
He needed someone to listen.
Sure.
I think more people need people to listen. It's maybe something that's missing.
I think it is. I mean, especially in I don't know, it sounds so cliche to say, in the world of today, we are potentially losing those kinds of even vulnerable moments between friends and family. Not that we have to, not to sound so pedantic to say we have to schedule this time to be vulnerable, but just that kind of, I don't know, the moment of suddenly we're going there and then it's the feeling of wait, can I go here right now? I'm so open to be on the receiving end of such real conversations. that's actually kind of how I feel like what I elicit from people, like even in this show, like
I
there's, you know,
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think some of my greatest friendships are people who, you know, they need to share, or they need to talk, or there's something going on, and it becomes it becomes an important part of our relationship where there is vulnerable expression between the two of us. And it is super necessary. It's funny. I talk to I mention this once in a while to maybe my wife, and or whoever will listen, but how I so much more appreciate getting together with a very small group of people, meaning like one or two, as opposed to having these bigger group like dinners or gatherings or what have you, because the conversation just goes mostly nowhere. It's everybody sort of trying to one up the next guy with some, I don't know, joke based on what you just said or the other person just said, and you really have no deep or meaningful conversation. And also, people they don't normally find comfort in bigger groups in being vulnerable.
yeah, you man, you're outing me as a as a not so closeted introvert anyway. Like I feel like you know, introverts of the world unite, but
Totally.
like not unites. I don't know. I feel like there's enough memes in the world about introverts, and um, but yeah, that feeling of I'd much rather be like in something nuanced, complex, and intimate with a smaller number of people
Mm-hmm.
than with, you know, some big party. Not to say like, you know, in my sort of past lives, like as a musician, like, yeah, I mean, you go play a show and there's, I don't know, 50, 100, hundreds of people or something. And there's that kind of experience. And yet there is like a kind of almost a singular sort of individuated experience that happens like as musician. I'm sure you may experience this as, at least my assumption is you may be experiencing this as you know, like one of your creative outputs now as like a lighting designer. If you're going to an event and you're kind of, I don't know if you're performing or you're setting up like a performance, so to speak.
Yeah, usually,
You know,
um, yeah, I think that one of the things that's appealing about what I have done in that space is that I I set up a performance and I basically hit play and walk away, and hope
yeah,
there's no technical problems,
yeah, yeah,
or pray that there's no technical problems.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, but I get it. There's that sort of that introvert extrovert thing where you're introverted extrovert when you're the person on stage performing. Um,
Yeah.
that, but you express yourself in a different way. It's easier to express yourself through, you know, your instrument than it is to maybe express yourself through words or conversation.
I think it really just depends on the individual. I mean, some people are almost born, you know, to do the sort of be on stage or be that kind of just sort of be the fulcrum of a party for that moment. I don't want to say like sucking up the air or like being the loudest person there. I'm going for the more like diplomatic sort of,
Right.
you know, observations of that. But like, yeah, sort of being the fulcrum at that moment of the party. That's kind of how I feel. Um, so, um, so yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for taking the time and the space to speak with me. I mean, I feel like I've presented this opportunity to you, and not that I experienced you as saying like, no, I don't want to do that, but I felt this natural, like I feel it too, kind of like not hesitance or not even reticent to, but just that kind of like, well, I don't know, like what I'd really be sharing or stuff like that. Like, what could I really talk about? And I am yeah. First and foremost, I'm just grateful to in the sea of chaos that is every day of the world right now in 2019.
Yeah.
As like as humans, as men, as parents, partners, in marriages or partnerships, like, thank you for
No,
being
thank you.
here in
Thank
the
you.
here and now.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me. I don't think I had a hesitance. At least I didn't intend to sound like I did. I'm sorry if I did feel like there was a hesitance.
No,
Maybe
maybe I perceived something that I was just like, I was thinking like maybe he may respond in that way. And yeah, it may just be like that's like sort of it within my narration of like, well, maybe he might not say yes, or he might not be available. Like, I mean, there's a lot of that goes on for me, like, as I'm trying to navigate, or thinking that I'm trying to navigate this show. Like, what if people say no? What if they're not interested? What if no one wants to talk to me? What if I can't schedule with anyone? Like, all those kinds of seemingly innocuous, sort of self-sabotagey kind of thoughts.
I mean, those are thoughts that's completely normal, completely, like 100% normal, and totally true with sort of everything that, I mean, I think this is how everybody feels. And I think when you're in that mode or in that moment of, oh, maybe he or she doesn't want to do this, or maybe he or she thinks a certain way about me, or we're all just, we beat ourselves up, and you get stuck in this echo chamber of, it's me, it's not, or it's me, it's not them.
Yeah.
And so I guess the point being, like, you're human too. So we all go through that stuff, and I maybe in the same boat as you. Like, I mean, it's not a competition to say, well, I have more self-doubt than you do. No, obviously not. But I get it, man. I get it 100%. Like, when doing any sort of venture, creative or business or what have you, it's in trying to involve other people. It's easy to constantly question, is this person interested in what I'm doing, or is this person just telling me what I want to hear? But so I've tried to work on that and try to remind myself that it's not them, it's me, which is hard to remember. I read this book that was recommended by a friend, called The Diamond Cutter, and I think it was
a friend gifted that to me years ago.
Oh, really? Did you read it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think I made it through most of it. And I think the first, hopefully I'm not mixing this up with another book, but I believe, obviously it's about the guy in the diamond industry, and he studied Buddhism for a while, and just sort of the lessons there, and talking about the energy received from somebody else and how you perceive that energy, and you choose how you want to receive the energy from a situation or people. It's not necessarily them, like, emitting this negative energy onto you. And am I remembering this correctly?
Yeah.
Please stop me if I'm like, you're like, no, that's the wrong book. No. But I think he talked about he got into meditation and how that was helpful, and then I think he went into, like, oh yeah, like these hourly or daily hourly meditations, which sound amazing, and I would love to do that, but as a as a parent and an entrepreneur and just a human being, and like, who's got time for that? Like, as much as I want to have time for that, that's where I sort of fell off. Oh, that's what he started to talk about, like weekly retreats, like meditation retreats, and like, maybe someday, I don't know, but point being, I resonated with the beginning, the first sort of part of the book where you talked about choosing to receive the energy in a certain way. And we do get hung up on certain people where if you decide that energy is negative, then you'll get stuck in that headspace, and that energy will always be negative, but you just have to let it bounce off you and realize that it's not them, it's you.
Yeah, that seemingly like your narrative really makes or breaks pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
This isn't really. That's actually a really good topic that I'd like to like take a moment to just touch on, especially within the context of like, we both happen to be like dads, like within the tech, within the sort of the tech universe,
Mm-hmm.
and my I've been noticing something, and especially, and I'm really only noticing it. Uh, Not only I'm noticing it in a certain level of richness through a medium like Instagram, where um, people who aren't parents really take the sort of I'm going to workshop myself as much as I can, as often as I can, like take it like to the next level. And it's that kind of like I'm watching like individuals like going to workshop after workshop, or going to see like do work with like this teacher or this um, I don't know, go to this retreat center, those kinds of things. And to me it seems it's I guess it's become like really clear to me, like as I'm noticing, sort of like how, what am I really trying to say here? I'm not really making a judgment. I'm just like noticing how, or let me put it this way: the people who don't know that they don't know about parenthood,
Right.
they really, really, really don't know. And to be fair, like 5 years ago, I was not to say that I was that person, like jumping from workshop to workshop, but when I didn't know, I really didn't know. Even with friends who were starting to have babies, you may come over and visit and, like hold the baby and maybe do a bottle feeding or something, like maybe check out how they change a diaper. Like there was a minimal kind of like workshopy aspect to that. Like especially because, like maybe months before, um, yeah, I'd say months before, my partner and I had our daughter, like there was an aspect of that, like how much can I take in terms of knowledge before I'm going to be in it, like sort of hour, day in and day out. There was that aspect of it, but when you're not a parent, you really don't know what it's like for other parents, even your close friends who may have recently become parents. And I don't really have a solution or like a strategy to sort of, I'm not saying like this is an epidemic or a big problem, but it's just something that
Oh, it's
I'm
totally an
noticing.
epidemic. We keep having kids, man. It's just like growing out of control. No, I 100% hear you. I totally get it. I was yelled at by one of my closest friends when he found out we were pregnant, because he said we we were ruining everything, because once one person gets pregnant, everybody else is getting pregnant. I was like, oh, thanks, dude. I mean,
Oh,
we definitely laughed about that later on. I was like,
yeah,
like this is the friend where we can be super frank to each other and super honest,
yeah,
and it's like a
yeah,
super healthy, amazing relationship.
yeah,
And where the conversations go to a very vulnerable state, and we very much need each other for that. Um,
yeah,
but I mean, back to the point of, yeah, you really don't have a clue, sort of, what you're getting into, and how far that sort of rabbit hole, or how deep that rabbit hole goes when you're talking about being a parent. Um, and where, and it goes in so many different, I mean, there's so many different ups and downs, and there's so many different parts of that experience, and it constantly evolves into different places, and you're like, wow, I didn't really expect to be dealing with that, or that's a new situation, or so on and so forth. For instance, I have I think your daughter is, you said 5, right?
She's 4 now. Yeah.
4, yeah. Yeah, I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, both boys, and my 12-year-old is, he's getting to the into his preteens and teens, and all the wonderfully uh, I don't know, sort of mind struggling things that come with that, I guess. For that's not a great term, but like, getting to teens, and the relationships, both with friends and girls, and where, oh, this person is acting this way and this person's acting that way, and it's sort of a whole new level of parenting where we're, oh, okay, you're looking for a relationship advice now. This is a new experience.
Yeah.
I knew this was coming, but I didn't know when.
Yeah.
12 is a little early, I suppose. Well, not at all. I mean, yeah, he's not far from 13, and he's in 6th grade, and I sort of putting myself back there, and remembering those experiences. But yeah, you don't know. You really don't know. And it's funny. I almost feel like I'm dancing around this certain word, and maybe we both are, when we're talking about following other people on Instagram and seeing all the things that they're doing and this, that, and the other thing. There's a sense of jealousy, so to speak, of like, wow, you don't know like how sort of easy you have it right now. And parenting is, having children is glorious in so many ways, and it's there's so many amazing things to be taken from, and learned from your children, and being a parent, and so on and so forth. But it's there's those with kids and those without. So yeah.
It's funny. I mean, it's funny. I mean, you say the word jealousy, and there's totally an aspect of that, and it could be. I think it's more complex and nuanced than that. But I mean, just for the sake of the moment and the here and now, like just fucking throwing it out there is great, because you get to refine it as you keep experiencing that phenomenon, aka Instagram. I mean, as someone like yourself you've been in the business and in the creative output of developing, envisioning and developing apps for use. So that whole like jealousy aspect, as the type of users you and I may be, like, you can feel that it's by design. That kind of, it's almost like, not like, hey, you sinister person, you're sort of designing what my experience is going to be like, and it's going to be incorporate this sort of aspect of jealousy. It's not necessarily, I'm not saying like everyone, like people are like, maligned like that.
Right.
But just that is a design decision, of like, I'm going to scroll through either people that I'm following or people that may be suggested to me through whatever these unique algorithms, and see this person, this digital nomad who's living in fucking Bali or something, chilling with like a coconut. Like, hey, I'm doing work and I'm chilling in Bali. And it's like there's an aspect of it for me that's like, yeah, that's nice. And yeah, and in the moments where, sort of day in and day out parenthood, I may decide in the today or yesterday, it's like, oh, that was really challenging. And not to say that like looking at Instagram is just kind of like looking at the grass is greener somewhere else. I feel like I look at it for a source of inspiration, for a way to reach out with people. Like, I feel like it's silly to say like my tenure with Instagram,
Hmm.
my relationship with it over the years
Mhm.
has definitely evolved. And the beginnings of it, truthfully, like not to blow like smoke up your butt, but like the beginnings of Instagram for me were like directly like cause and effect to using the apps that you made with Pixite, that I can express myself creatively and visually, and in turn be in touch with like a sort of global community of people. That was like how I started using Instagram like 7 years ago, which is super inspiring. And it's like I'm always looking for that kind of a engagement, and I'm doing it now like more with like sort of tea and parenthood, and also with, like moments of art as well. It's not quite the same, but then I can easily notice when on certain days, or like if I'm in I'm in a funk or something, and maybe I'm not reaching out to a friend to be like just really vulnerable, if I'm going to like find myself using a tool like that, and then not creating jealousy, but just like sort of using and abusing the app in a way that I know is unhealthy for me,
Hmm.
where I'm just sort of like a voyeur in a way. I'm looking at someone else sharing something amazing. And I know it's by design how the app works and how the algorithm is spitting things out to me, and how their ads, lately the ads have gotten like very strange, like just in the last week for me.
Really, that's really funny to hear because I sort of feel the same way. And actually, the ads were, dare I say, well done and well targeted for maybe the last 6 months or a year before that, because I very much curated my feed, but they have gotten weird in the last week. They changed
Yeah.
something.
Something happened where like they kind of like open the floodgates for like honestly, like I'll be, and like for the purpose of recording this conversation and putting it out as a show, like let this be on record.
Totally.
let this be on record that for the last, like for a while, like within the last 2 years, ever since I started like embracing my baldness, I shit you not, almost every targeted Instagram ad for me was like hair regrowth, like blah blah blah, like constant, like incessant. It
Jesus.
was like regrow your hair, and you know what else I've noticed that I've actually never said, and especially within this kind of conversation, as I've been incessantly getting ads about like online dating, which I have no idea
That's super
why.
strange.
It's super strange. Like online dating, like meet, like there's, I can say the name now because I've seen it, 800 billion
Oh,
times,
no.
but it's called Meet Mindful. Meet Mindful has been targeted, like sending me targeted ads to meet a conscious partner. And like a lot of like fix your hair, dude. Is basically like the message I've been, every time I see that stuff, I'll take the 3 seconds to the upper right, the dots button, and to say like hide this ad. It's irrelevant. It's offensive. Like just enough already.
Right.
I may have sent a message to Instagram maybe once or twice within the last number of years, obviously with no real response. But all that said, this last week I started getting like targeted, like join the Masons ads.
Whoa. Okay, that's next level weird.
That is next. I mean, it's so next level that I recorded that. I did a screen recording of the ad and then shared it. Like, what the fuck is this,
Wow.
man? It was very. It was really
So
something.
the Masons have jumped on the
Masons have jumped
social
on.
advertising bandwagon as well, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
who isn't on there at this point, right?
Really, who isn't? it was really something. And yeah, haven't given enough, like sort of having just now given a lot of time for that just now in this conversation. Again, like I want to reiterate that. And it's funny, just to take a second, like I don't, like on the episodes I'll do like maybe a 2-minute intro, before I start playing the conversation. And in that intro, I really kind of, I'd say, more formally introduce every guest.
Yeah.
I don't really do so, at least on my end within a conversation, but I always like I always sort of open it up at some point, like within a conversation where I feel like it's hopefully really organic to let the guests speak for themselves, because I feel like, I feel privileged to call you a friend, and at the same time, like my getting my sort of reaching out to you was through a universe like Instagram, or like through apps, through the things that you've created or co-created and put out into the world, and then I've like reached out to, like, on my own behalf. So it's like a really interesting, like seemingly 21st century way to like make a friend. But I guess it's no different than, if I had been living in a different era and like, an artisan made a product that let's say a blacksmith made an amazing tool. And I was like, hey, I want to reach out to this blacksmith and write a letter and say how appreciative I am of their craft, and like kind of forging a friendship that way. So I guess it really isn't that different, but it's seemingly in the digital age, it seems like a unique phenomenon to like make friends in that way.
What's funny is, like, I guess I like maybe forgot about the fact that, not forgot about, but never really took into too much consideration the basis of our friendship on a product that I played a part in making.
Yeah.
And so I guess, just to be clear, I'm like it's funny. I don't even want to say the term. I'm like, I don't know. I've never really considered you or anybody else who I've sort of communicated with in this space as like, this is a fanboy. Like even like just saying it out loud makes me feel shitty. And like, I generally have always been like, hey, like you reached out to me first, and I was like, hey, here's a dude that makes really cool art on Instagram and just happens to use some of the apps that we've made. That's awesome. But I think like that thought stopped there. Like it was like, okay, hey, like, let's have some conversation. And then from that point on, it was like, here's just a really interesting guy who makes great art, and we have good conversation, and that's it. And we're friends. Like, and it goes from there. So just wanted to sort of to say that out loud. And I what you were saying, like sort of 7 years ago, your Instagram, journey and art journey sort of started in that space. I kind of felt the same way with the, but I was on, I guess I was on a different, or no, not necessarily a different side of things. I felt the same way in that, okay, so I made this cute little app that made some geometric drawing stuff, and that's cool and whatnot. And I put it out there, and I kind of forgot about it. It was like, I don't know if anybody's using this. I'm barely selling any, like, whatever. It was a fun experiment. And like, and in doing the creative things that I do, so much of it has been like, it's about the process. It's about making a thing, and hey, if you like it, cool. If you don't, whatever. I enjoyed the process. So I put that out there, and I think however, a year later or whatnot is when I sort of discovered, I guess I was Googling, was like, does anybody use DecoSketch? I sort of Googled it, and that's where I discovered Instagram. I found some people posting images of it on Instagram, like 3 people. I don't know. It was really small. And that's where I got excited, because it was like, oh, cool, people are using my product. But I think beyond that, I was like, wait a minute, there's this whole world of these people making art with apps on their phones, and nothing. And that's where I got excited, because I'm like, I felt like, it's funny. My wife and I always talk about this. Our sort of way to describe this experience. What's the song? There's a song, I think it's by Blind Melon. I don't remember the name of the song, but the music video is about, it shows it's like there's a bumblebee who like discovers, it's like looking for the bumblebee. The person dressed up in a bumblebee costume is looking for their people, and like the whole beginning of the
oh yeah, it's No Rain, right?
I don't, yeah, maybe. It's
Something
funny.
like
I
that.
almost know the words, but at the end, the bumblebee finds his or her people, and it was a similar experience. I'm like, I found my people. The people are like, I'm not making this product because I want you to use it. I'm making this product because I want to make art with you and talk about art and collaborate and like
Yeah.
let's all get inspired and by each other and see where this goes. And I think that's where that, I think that my journey started around the same time. I just maybe, came from a little bit of a different perspective, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You just kind of really, that's pretty mind blowing, because I remember that video, watching that when I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old or something, and remembering like it being like kind of for me, maybe a seminal, how I understood or how I started relating to music videos as like a boy, like not even like a preteen really. Mm-hmm. Wow.
I brought you back.
But yeah, I know. It really brought me back. It really brought me, no, which is great. It's why we're here.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for clarifying, those things even beforehand. I feel like I don't know much about I feel like without knowing much about it, so it's really kind of hard to speak about it. But I feel like there is a culture of sort of fandom. I mean, you could say fanboy, fangirl, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a culture of fanness that like is probably in like more like the celebrity or like I love a musician kind of thing, that is kind of like not to say like, oh, you're worshiping an icon or something like that, but there's that kind of aspect of it. It seems like, having never been, but it seems like stuff like Comic-Con is really like or like a Trekkie convention. maybe not to shit on any of this.
No, not at all
whatsoever. But it seems like that's like the kind of like the main forum for stuff like that. Plus like whatever you do online or whatever you may share online that like is in constant altar building to that, either to the person or the personality or the character or something. And yeah, I mean, to be fair, like my experience of, I don't even remember how I found it. That's what's so cool about it. Like I have no distinct memory of finding Deco Sketch. I may have just typed like geometric in the App Store, and like that may have come up in a search result. So again, like thank you App Store or something.
Yeah,
like that. But
for the keywords, I got the right keywords.
Keywords are great.
Somebody else is on the same plane as me. Thank you, Adam. Cool.
Exactly. and I remember as I started using it, I think there was also like a simultaneous or like an impending like Mac version that may or may not be utilizing what was it called again?
The Leap Motion.
The Leap Motion, that's right. And feeling like, whoa, this is kind of like beyond our years right now. And I think I don't even remember if I really did try the Leap Motion. That's a whole other conversation for later. But I definitely can say that like the mobile experience is really where I thrived, or I felt like I was thriving, like within, utilizing these products. Mm-hmm. And as I was trying to explain to people, like, wait, what are you doing again? I was like, well, I use this ecosystem of apps to give me either certain assets or tools or filters or whatever to sort of like, I was like saying, like, I've developed my own sort of Illustrator kind of workflow through this whole ecosystem, which is kind of another way of saying like, well, I'm kind of a graphic designer, but I'm definitely saying like, fuck you to the Adobe style ecosystem, because it was so much more like an intuitive, touch based, exploratory experience, which is what was always exciting me. Anytime I tried making something, either from an idea or a vision, or just like, I'm just going to see what happens when I put these blocks together. It was very like, like sort of Montessori style playing, with, I don't know, if you look back at it, like seemingly rudimentary or elementary things of like, if you cobble together in your unique expressive way, you get something special. And so to see like how, for me to watch a company like Pixite, which is, if I am understanding correctly, is it something that you co-founded or is it something you joined? What's the story there?
Yeah, no, I didn't co-found. I joined Pixite in,
okay.
So Pixite's been around since 2009.
Yeah.
Scott Sikora and Eugene Kaneko are the co-founders. Pixite started with photo management apps. The popular one being web albums, which was a way to manage your Google Picasa account on the iPad, and
wow.
that did really well for Pixite because there was no. I mean, this was obviously long before Google Photos, and Google hadn't created any sort of native iOS experiences to manage that. So that was sort of the flagship product, and then Pixite made a couple other. I think there was an iPhone version made of that back when there were iPad versions and then iPhone versions, and then I think there was a sort of trying to recreate that success. Looked at doing or did make a Dropbox version of that, a Flickr version of that similar experience, and maybe others. I think those are the two big ones, which I think did okay. But around the time, it's funny, this all happened. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the Leap Motion thing because literally all this happened around that same time.
Yeah.
I had moved to Encinitas, just north of San Diego, in 2012. I think 2012 or 2013. And I was working at a co-working space in San Diego called Third Space, which, for the record, is probably the coolest co-working space I've ever been to. Before co-working spaces were cool and filled with reclaimed wood panels and and fancy coffee. This was not that at all. It was a pretty raw warehouse space with a really unique take, and was just full of, there was painters, there was video editors, there was sort of like quasi maker space in the back, there was photographers, and of course developers and designers and writers and so on and so forth. But it was a cool group of people. It was small. The guy who ran it, Pete McConnell, he was kind of picky about who he let in, and he always called it. His joke was it's a, what did he say? Something about like, it's not a club, it's a cult, I think, which was really funny. I mean, and he would interview people when they're interested in becoming part of the co-working space, and then if he didn't feel like they were a good fit, he would say no. So if it was like a salesman who was probably going to be on the phone all day, he was like, yeah, you probably don't fit in with the group. He really wanted like a creative group of open-minded people working there, and there were never too many people there. But it was such a cool space, and Pete's gone on to do other things, and Third Space is, I think, used for something else at this point. But yeah, definitely the coolest co-working space. My point was, that's where I met Scott and Eugene, because they were also using Third Space as their sort of their workspace, and I was sort of working on Deco Sketch, and I would overhear their conversations and meetings about the apps that they were working on, and we both individually got the Leap Motion for our own projects. And we never really had communicated before this. So like we'd like seen each other in the co-working space, but never really talked too much. And I was like, oh, hey, I got one of those too. And you know, we ended up, that sort of opened the conversation, and they were doing their own experiments with it with web albums. And I was doing my own experiments. And that's when we sort of started to like share wares. And they had an interest in doing something in the creative space. And I had an interest in finding actual software developers, you know, instead of me being a sort of hack programmer, someone who actually knew what they were doing. I was sort of self-taught and maybe not the best way. So I did my best, I guess, but I was looking to do more of the creative stuff and maybe not handle as much as the programming. And so we connected, we had some good conversation. And we started, I think we were actually going to build a small version of Deco Sketch inside of web albums. And that's when Scott was trying to teach me a little bit of Objective-C. And I was like, yeah, I know how to use Flash and ActionScript. That's my thing. And that's always been my thing. And I don't know what I'm doing with Objective-C. But we sort of moved past that.
Which is an app. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Objective-C is a language like C or C++. It's like another version of that. And Objective-C is the base language for building iOS apps.
Got it.
Now it's moved on to other things like Swift, I think, is sort of the current thing. Whatever. I'm sort of getting into the weeds here. I came up with an app idea. That was Tangent. I pitched that to him. We sort of partnered together to do that. And we released it, and that was that was the first time Pixite had gotten an app feature on the App Store. I kind of remember just getting a call from Eugene in the middle of the day. He's like, dude, did you get the email? I was like, what email? He's like, Tangent's going to be featured on the App Store. I was like, you're kidding me. I'm like, we just built this thing and came up with this random idea and they're going to feature it in the App Store. Like, that was the most exciting thing, or probably the most excited I've been about, you know, one of my creative ventures. And I mean, not to say that everything else I've done hasn't been as exciting, but I think that was like, wow. Apple recognized this random idea that I had and that we built together. And, you know, we grew this thing together, and they featured it, and I ended up joining the company a few months later, and the rest is history, I guess. You know, we went on to build, you know, the other apps, Lori Stripes, in Matter and Fragment and Union, those being all the sort of the photo editing apps. I think we all did most of those within a year or so of each other. It was tons of fun. And now we've moved on to the coloring stuff, and we have the design, you know, Pigment with our coloring app Pigment, and then Assembly, our design app, which is a lot of fun. I mean, they're both a lot of fun. So it's been a fun ride, man.
It's been amazing as someone who's just been enjoying the fruits of the of the labor. It's amazing to on the one hand see all these apps as individual. They stand by themselves as individual products, but they also exist within like a really interesting ecosystem. I mean, an ecosystem that I've maybe built in my head, like in terms of like having a story or a relationship with apps. But they stand collectively so far apart from anything else I use, with one exception. And I hope you may have heard of this app called Universe.
Yes, I checked out Universe after you talked with the founder, I guess. I listened to that episode, and I really enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, this is super cool. And I definitely pulled some inspiration from it.
And I think I told him in our conversation, like, that really, like, the only experiences that even draw from the well of awesome, which is how I, you know, we'll talk about, you know, Pixite apps. I was like, you should check those out, because those are you know, like, have been consistently inspiring. So yeah, that's cool that you know, if I can say I've made that connection, that feels really cool to know that. Um, but yeah, I mean, like standing apart from anything else, like nothing elicits creativity, nothing, you know, like, and it's different to go back to an app because I have a creative idea or I want to explore something. It's so unique to have that experience. Or let me just say it another way. I cherish the fact that I get to have a creative relationship with something versus like, oh, I have a weird social need, so I'll go to Instagram for that, right?
Mm.
And you know, to be fair, I'm being really vulnerable about that right now because I've actually like stopped using Facebook finally. I've pretty much permanently suspended my Facebook account, and I only leave it there so I can continue using Messenger because that's another way to like communicate with people.
Mm.
But if it wasn't for speaking or having sort of continuous conversations with people on Messenger, I would just delete the whole thing. Like, kind of, I'm pretty much done
Yeah,
with that whole
I hear you,
universe.
dude. Yeah, I've stopped. I stopped actively using Facebook maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I don't, and I
yeah,
don't, and it went from checking it every day to checking a couple times of, checking it every other day to a couple times a week to once a week to twice a month to once every other month to I just don't even care anymore.
and then is that something that you like was like a premeditated thing?
No, I just got so sick and tired of it. It was just boring. Like it just
Yeah,
wasn't interesting anymore. I'm like
yeah.
people complaining about dumb things and videos of dumb things. Like there's just nothing interesting on there anymore to me.
Well, yeah,
So I just moved on, and I like, and I've stuck with Instagram, and I've gone up and down and back and forth with Instagram. I'm on a sort of, I'm on an upswing with Instagram after having like taking a break, and I just got bored with it. It
yeah,
also became like sort of a
yeah,
time suck. I don't know.
yeah.
Which like, oh, how much time did I spend on Instagram today? I mean, it was never that much. I mean, my daily usage was half an hour, 45 minutes. I don't know. Like even saying that
Yeah,
sounds crazy to me.
sure. Well, that speaks a lot to what I've been constantly hearing about, reading about, and as I've been sort of cautiously navigating this realm of user experience, really this like the culture of consumption and convenience built on the framework of social media and then like the convenience, the Amazoning, the, you know, food delivery, Uber, Lyft, these, I mean, the convenience stuff is really like the convenience stuff, but like the whole social media aspect of it just being like, as you say, a time suck. It's just feeding that sort of this new found culture of consumption that again, like using stuff like Pixite or as I'm constantly, treating, my sort of whatever I build in or whatever I have put out in universe is something that I like going back to and refining and refining and refining and updating. Like it is like it's funny to think like the stuff that I create within the stuff that you've helped make is really my only antidote, my only technological antidote to the culture of consumption, to like social media, which is really cool in a way. And here's a question I want to ask you, as a parent who's like in the tech world. I mean, there's actually a number of questions, but the first question is, um, if you aren't premeditated with like, I'm going to spend less and less time using this technology or like a platform like social media, um, to notice how my sort of time is getting sucked away. Like, what are the fail safes? What other fail safes are there other than like your partner or wife or your kids like asking for your attention like in the real world? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess it all comes to discipline, which is
Yeah.
always easier said than done. You can say that all day, but it's hard. Discipline is hard. Um, yeah, I think I've gotten to the habit of like, I put my phone down. I actually put it in sort of a place where it's not in eye shot in the evening when I'm home. Or I work at home half the time. Um, when I'm in my office, I'm in full whatever work mode and communication mode, or so I have my phone with me, and when work is done, like 5 or 6 o'clock, I sort of try to stash it away, and because I don't want that distraction. I don't want to see notifications. Um, I don't want to be tempted to be like, oh, I've got 5 minutes to blow. I'm going to pick up my phone and look at it.
Yeah.
Because that also, like, as a parent, I don't want my kids looking at devices all day. And we've set restrictions on devices and when they can use them and what they're using them for. And
That was actually my next question.
right.
Is like with an 8 and 12-year-old, like, are there different limits with each of your sons? Like, how does that work?
No. See, that has been a bit of a challenge. Well, not really a challenge. They've always. So as a parent, so to answer that question, they have the same restrictions, and in many ways they've grown up together, and maybe like the younger one is maybe doing things that the older one didn't do when he was his age, and the older one is maybe doing things a little younger than his age. I mean, they're both very, like, individually, they're very, they act the way they should at their age, I guess. But when it comes to sort of device usage and bedtime, like, they're on the same page. So we don't separate and say, oh, well, you're 12, so you can stay up till 10, and you're 8, so you have to go to bed at 8. Like, no,
Yeah.
we always, I guess, we meet in the middle. Like, now they go to bed at 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. But on the device side of things, we have restrictions around that, and I also don't want to, you very much model, your behavior is what they follow. And so if I say, sorry, we're not using devices now, and I'm sitting there scrolling Instagram, I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
So that's another part of it.
Yeah.
And there's days where we have, so the weekends, it's kind of like,
it's like a cheat day.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cheat 48 hours. Well, not 48 hours. Like, they get up and they play video games for like 3 hours. On Saturday and Sunday, and then we're like, oh, okay, we're done. Let's go out as a family and go do something. Let's go do whatever. And then in the evening, it's like, yeah, sure, it's video game time. But it is because of that sort of freedom they have. I think it's more on the mind. And then you've got all their friends have different parents have different rules around devices and video games and screen time and content. I mean, because video games is just one part of it. There's YouTube is a whole nother side of it, which I've been uncomfortable letting them sort of just free on YouTube, but keeping an eye on what they're watching. And I think we've had enough conversations with them about the dangers of what's online and what you could potentially end up with or end up seeing, that I trust that they're not looking at anything except sort of video game and cartoon stuff on YouTube. And I check the history of the devices just to see, hey, what are you guys looking at? And we've fostered in sort of a trust with parent-child trust, where if there is something weird, like, come to us, or just in life in general. Like, if you have questions about anything at all, like, open communication, ask questions, please. And I think that's working, because we're not no parents where, okay, this is why I'm uncomfortable with this, parents. This is why I don't think this is a good thing to do, parents. We have a lot of discussion, and I think that's hugely helpful in gaining their trust. As someone who grew up with no parents and there was never an explanation as to why, I was just like, nope, why? Because I said so. And so we didn't have that trust with each other. We didn't have that communication. So what we've chosen to change that with our kids, and I think it's helped out a lot. And I'm hoping we stay on this path as they get older. And because as you know, like kids get older, and you're like, yeah, my family's less important, and I'm a teen. I want to hang out with my friends, and so on and so forth. So the things that they say are more important, and if they are sort of presented with things that maybe seem questionable that their parents maybe not agree with, maybe they'll think twice about looking at that video on YouTube or downloading that app or doing whatever. I don't know. I hope this is, talk about like this as different stages of parenting. This is sort of one of the places we're at right now.
Which is also so singular to like time right now, like this era or this like phase of years. It's really it's really humbling to hear like how you guys are figuring that out and how you're navigating it, because it's so singular to the right now. Like 10 years ago, we didn't really need to navigate like this, or seemingly. I guess I'm assuming, like, if I was a parent 10 years ago, but I don't have a 12-year-old, so I don't quite know that experience. But I have a 4-year-old who is, like, to be real, like, knows how to navigate, the whatever the app is that has videos and games, whichever ones we're using right now. There's a PBS one, or there's like a Spanish learning one that are like objectively cool apps. If I was a kid, even like now as an adult, I get to appreciate it with her. But like there's that kind of ease of use, like intuitive, like I know how to start and stop and navigate through a dashboard, whatnot, and yet like there isn't like command of like putting like pencil to paper. So it's interesting for me to watch that, and at the same time hearing how you two are utilizing critical thinking and a lot of openness in your family, again, is also really inspiring, because we're doing everything we can, with our 4-year-old daughter, about talking about our feelings, about setting limits, and trying to, and not eliciting, but generating respect, on both sides.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, man, it's like seemingly a trial, for every singular family.
It really is. Yeah. The communication, the open communication thing has helped a lot,
Yeah, it's seemingly like I can't imagine it any other way. And yet I can remember, like, as you said minutes ago about, your parents and how you were raised, like there was a lot of unspoken stuff in my family. Like, I mean, to the detriment of many things.
Yeah.
And we get to draw from those memories and like, okay, well, I'm going to do it this way, not that way, which is a constant source of inspiration, as painful as it may be sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Like that, like, okay, I feel this way and this is really how I feel inside, but I know I shouldn't. Not that I shouldn't. I mean, you should always feel what you feel, but you have to decide how to put those feelings out there. Like, well, I got to pause. I need to be patient, and I need to listen, and I need to stop and sort of explain. And it can be taxing as a human being to especially when you're having these conversations over and over and over again. And as you probably know, as a parent, you're like, you're just repeating yourself like daily. You're like, no, that's not how we do things. No, remember, we're supposed to do this now. Nope, you got to brush your teeth. Don't forget your socks. Put your shoes on. And I'm like, I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and we're still having these conversations. So
yeah.
And you just get but sometimes you get to that point of like, oh my God, dude, I tell you this every single day. Like, when will you remember to turn the light off when you're done using the bathroom? Like,
Yeah.
but then you just to let
Yeah.
go and be like, this is just isn't worth my energy. It's like not worth
Yeah.
any of my energy.
Yeah. Well said.
Oh
I mean,
man.
really. Yeah.
So I'm curious, maybe related to this conversation. I saw
Yes.
that you did a bit of a digital device detox, um, and getting rid of some looks like mostly Apple devices. Does any of that relate to being a parent, or is it just sort of is it a personal thing, or is it?
Yeah. It's all the above. I mean, uh, so there's a couple of avenues in terms of an answer to this question, and it's a great topic too because I mean it kind of pertains to like maybe as you would put like a work-life balance. You know, as someone who is a freelance, UX designer, strategist, consultant, I feel like I'm spending more of my time looking for projects or tracking down clients than doing actual work. So, and then I found at some point within the last year, like, well, if I have the watch, which will streamline some notifications so that I can respond easier instead of take the fucking phone out to, whatever, that may help me in the long term. Or if I have the tablet, I don't have to whip out the computer so often, which is bulkier, like a MacBook Pro, all this stuff. Whatever reasons I came up with to justify purchasing these products. To be fair, as an ecosystem, these products work.
Mm-hmm.
But as someone who I'm growing kind of wearier as I navigate my freelance career, and I guess constantly choose to like not go work full time on site for either whatever agency, enterprise, or even a startup. It's like I feel like if I go down that seemingly traditional path of like I'm going to go and earn and secure our help secure our sort of day-to-day or our long-term goals as a family, that I will be spending less time raising my daughter. If I have to go commute across town
Oh
to
yeah.
where most of the jobs are, and we live in Echo Park,
Mm-hmm.
so if I have to go commute to Silicon Beach, that's easily 8 hours of work and 3 hours of driving. I would not see my daughter unless it's like the weekend, which maybe even then is like I'm just maybe recouping. So as I'm growing, like as I'm having a stranger relationship with tech really as a whole right now, I've also been coming across like some really great, to me, voices of reason, like guys like Yuval Noah Harari,
Yeah.
and Tristan Harris and Cal Newport, who I've just recently been introduced to his work. All saying the same things. At least I'm hearing the same things, just in different forms. Where it's like you need to create limits for yourself. You need to create the environment and the ambiance for doing like meaningful work. You need time away to reflect. You can't always be plugged in. You can't always respond to these notifications because it literally fucks with your brain.
It really does.
to be crude about it. I'm not trying to like be PG with this conversation, like, or any of these conversations. Like, it's become it's become more apparent as a parent, because I'm a freelancer and I'm like always needing to look for the next thing.
Yeah.
At least that's just my experience, and it is a minefield. So my sort of conscious decision to like I'm going to get rid of the superfluous Apple devices, not because they suck, because they work really well.
They work too
Uh,
well.
they work too well, and I don't want to lug the ecosystem around with me, wherever I go. And I'm in a moment right now. Like, I'm about to turn like 36 in a few weeks, and I'm like really sizing up. Like, okay, I've been pursuing this particular career for about 5 years now, and it's, for me, like a 5-year report card is probably much needed
Mm.
for myself to see, like, what am I doing? If I can evaluate what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what I'm trying to pursue, and what am I willing to sacrifice, to get to where I want to go. And as I've been reading a bunch of, Yuval Harari, and listening to, Cal Newport, and paying attention to what, what is Tristan Harris's thing, the Humane Tech Center for Humane Tech. I feel more and more like I'm aligning with the values that these people are standing for, that I feel like, well, maybe I should really shift in that kind of a direction to help people curb their, bad, good, bad. I don't really want to sort of,
Well, there's a balance.
there's a
I think I
balance.
understand
Yeah.
what you're trying to, like, it's a healthy balance of consumption. And these devices do too well of a job of pulling you back in order to see what the little notification says, that is beckoning your attention to then go dive into that app and spend however much time on it, and so they can feed you ads and whatever, or look for the next job, or watch the silly video. Yeah, but it's a part of, it's a sort of a necessary part of life. I mean, not that part, but like the way we communicate with these devices, through these devices, is a necessary part of life. I mean, you can live a different life and you can live without them, and but I mean, if you're in that space, you're in the tech space, the UX space, like, obviously you need to rely on these products for your job. But I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, as a freelancer, it's never ending, and you're also, like, every time that you see that email notification, or that sound or what have you, you're like, is that the next job? Did I get that job? Am I getting more hours? Like, what do they think? Or on the on the other side of things, like, is that the client who expects me to work until 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and wants to turn
Yeah.
around, wants me to turn these revisions over tomorrow morning? Like, it's both of those, and there does need to be a balance.
Yeah.
And device detox is a good start. I think I would encourage you, if you haven't already, to turn all your notifications off, like 100%, across the board. Because what I've realized is that because we use our phones for so many other things besides, or just so many other things. It's entertainment, it's work, it's picking up the groceries, it's getting a ride somewhere, it's tracking our money, it's searching for something. The list goes on and on and on and on, as you know. But when you pick up your device because, hey, I need to call an Uber or a Lyft or what have you, but then there's a notification for something related to work, you're immediately pulled out of your excitement to get in the car to go to a concert or wherever you're going, to your dinner party or whatnot, and you're like, your brain is taken away, and so you never seem to be able to have a singular moment. You're always torn between all these other things that you're supposed to be getting, like, calling attention to. And I think we all need to do better at shutting these things off. And not when I don't mean devices specifically, I mean, hey, this is work time, this is family time, this is social time, this is me time, and you need to establish those, and you need to stick with um, that schedule, however you define it, and do not let anything get in the way of that, because then they all
Absolutely.
just stomp on each other, and you can never really be anywhere. You're always in 10 different places. And I don't remember when I did it, but there was a point where I'm like, I'm done with all the notifications. When I pick up my phone to do something, I don't want it telling me that I need to do something else. That's not,
Yeah.
So that's my rant.
Yeah.
That's my rant about
No,
notifications and
and
device
that's,
usage.
no, I mean, it's always important for me to hear that. And it's definitely important for whoever is going to listen to this to hear that as well, because there are nothing but constant forces, are like constant forces from many angles or many companies
Yes.
or many overlords at the same time to constantly grab your attention, to pull it into this thing or to that thing.
And I
Pretty much other than like phone calls and texts, I've turned off like app notifications and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, there's a bigger aspect of me for like I really want to model, because it's such a moment right now, for our daughter. It's like I really want to model, that like at night we don't have to watch the screens for entertainment, because it is a source of entertainment too. That there's so much, there's other books or there's other toys, or we could put on a show, or we can write a book, or like all the ways to either be creative or relearn how to be creative, in the eyes of your kid. So, and taking more time to read books, not doing ebooks, but like get a book.
Yeah, physical books. Yeah.
Get physical books, and like, I find physical books are, one of the three ways that help me even like fall asleep if I need to fall asleep. That just works personally for me.
Yeah.
Like having that kind of brain power to read, and then while you're laying in bed, it's like fuck Ambien. Like all I need is that.
Dude, seriously, a book. I'm like, I'm good. I'm like,
a book. I'm good.
done. Yeah,
Give me 10 minutes,
totally
5-10 minutes, and I'm out.
Totally.
So which is, so yeah, so there's that aspect of it. There's many reasons why I'm doing that, and like in having been inspired recently by these voices out in the world. There's actually there's a book called Digital Minimalism. I think that's Cal Newport's most recent book that I still like. I'm already standing behind. I haven't even read the book. I'm like, oh, I'm totally already on that path anyway.
So it's 2 words, and you're like, yeah, I got it.
Exactly.
I got it.
So there's that aspect of it. I also want to experiment with being different levels of connected. I mean, obviously the iPhone is a priceless tool for connectivity, entertainment, and productivity. But then there's also like there's actually a company who I'm going to be talking to on this show soon. I don't know if you've heard of this product. It's called the Light Phone.
No, I haven't.
The Light Phone is like one of these, non-smartphone, aka I guess dumb phone is what they're calling these things. And its purpose is to like, be a refuge for to not be a smartphone. Like this thing can make calls and send texts and like have an alarm clock, but that's it. Like, don't, there's no other apps to, for the sake of, productivity and social media. Like, don't expect that from this. And it's not so like cut and dry like that. I don't think the message that they're sending out is like, you must stop using that. It's like, actually, no, we all are agreeing, based on their manifesto, we all agree that like there's a epidemic here of like attention grabbing and finding that our brains aren't working because we're constantly our awareness and attention are being cut up and chopped up into little bites of sushi with like answering this or getting that or interacting with this. So So this is like a way to embrace more time for yourself, but to also be reachable.
Yeah.
So
I'm curious. I'm interested to hear that conversation and
yeah,
like their sort
yeah,
of
yeah,
um, how they see this fitting into the daily life of someone like you or me, or does it not? You know, as someone who works in the tech field and needs
yeah,
communication, you know, because I see a value there, but it's got to be um, it's got to be only in certain situations. I
yeah,
need my phone. I need my iPhone. You know, at certain points during the day and on certain days and you know whenever. But on other points, I don't need it. I just need my family to be able to contact me. So how
yes.
do you is it literally like are we swapping SIMs like
I think there's I'm waiting for my phone to arrive, which I think is going to arrive in the next month or so, because it was like an Indiegogo campaign,
Mhm.
and you know, um, and this is their second model. Their first model, uh, their sort of flagship model is just making and receiving calls. That's it.
And the new one has an app store, the second
The
model?
new one, no, I don't think it has an app store.
I'm totally kidding.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I know. The new one is more like an e-ink display. Like the other one was just like a number, like a numpad.
Oh yeah, got it.
This new one is like an e-ink display that you can, like, again, you can send and receive calls, and you can send and receive texts. So it's they realize that like many people communicate through text message, so that seems like an integral thing. And like, granted, like there are, I also recognize where like texting is almost a preferred method of communication for people in my life. So I can see the value in that. So that's why I got the second one. I'm waiting for the second one, but it's not I mean, it could be your sole device, or it's like um, you can take it with you versus your smartphone,
Hmm.
and you can sort of like forward the calls and texts to this
Oh, I
device. It's
see.
like
Okay.
I don't think it's a different SIM thing. They will have a SIM in it that you can have as your sole device. But it's, without sounding like really campy and cliche about it, I think there's kind of like a phone away from phone aspect to it,
Yeah.
uh, which is that's the value. That's the biggest value to probably to many people, especially in what you just described. Like, yeah, I mean, you live with your iPhone, right? But like, if you're going to go out with your sons, or you're going to have some family time, or you're going to go on a walk by yourself, like, you don't need your iPhone, but you can have something where you're still reachable, and that's sort of the biggest value proposition.
That's interesting. I'm totally on board with that. You know, like the more I think about it, I think it's easy to sort of write it off immediately and say that's crazy. No one can do that. No one can really rely on that. But
Yeah,
if the technology is sort of a forwarding situation where your phone away from your phone, or I just leave this, it's not a phone anymore. And it's funny that we call it a phone. It's even funny that my kids call it a phone.
yeah,
Like their idea of a phone is not what we consider what a phone is. Um, but yes, my pocket computer, my pocket PC that I can leave at home,
yeah,
and then my phone communication device that I take with me when I want a dedicated, focused experience wherever I'm going, and I'm not being
yeah,
distracted by these other things.
yeah,
I can get on board with that.
yeah. And that's where I want to experiment with it. I mean, we're also like we're in a co-op preschool, so I spend like a number of hours, like almost daily, like maybe an hour or two a day around our co-op. And like, I mean, there's just it's so like, my life right now is so hands-on. Like, I'm like baking and cooking more because I want that kind of immersive day to day, day in and day out experience. Like, tea for me is always such a hands-on immersive experience, and like and always introducing tea to people, even as a even as a service, like as a team building or like a mindfulness kind of an experience. I mean, it is whatever I call it. It's a tea experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a very immersive experience
I mean,
that is a digital detox, like in and of itself.
I'm interested, man. I see all
Yeah,
your tea
yeah,
your tea festivities or whatever you want to call it, like
yeah,
your tea consumption on Instagram, and it
yeah,
looks so I don't know, sort of meditative and maybe spiritual and interesting. And I'm definitely I'd if I find myself I don't know in your neck of the woods, I may have to hit you up for some tea.
yeah. Absolutely. Like the next time you guys are up here and stuff.
It's funny you were just talking about
Um,
like doing these sort of tea ceremonies. Um, is that something you're doing just with friends or just with family, or something you would consider doing maybe as a opening it up to strangers for as a hey I offer tea ceremonies as like a side business, I guess. I mean I wouldn't want to
oh,
take away
it
from.
is. No, it very much actually is. I mean, you know, to be really transparent about it. I mean, I've been doing it for 10 years, and the fact that I'm like really putting it into the forefront of like what I'm sharing with the world is definitely like that's by design
Got
for
it.
me.
Got it.
I've been sharing it with friends um, and strangers alike. I mean, I actually have it as a service. Like I put together a site in Universe, and and hopefully I'm explaining it as a service or as a service for hire for people, for couples, for teams, retreats, things like that. Um, it's out there, and it is and I've actually done it lately uh, more than UX work. I was also like I was on a contract, remote contract with a company in Texas. Uh, it was like a 12-week project, and like week 4 or 5, they like shafted me. It was like, well, that really sucks. And at the
Definitely.
same time, it was like, it was so lame. But at the same time, it was like, cool. Well, I'm gonna, I'm gonna channel my frustration into like more podcasts, more tea as a service. And it's, you know, not to like quantify it like, oh, it's been paying off for me, but it's been doing so much for me as an individual, as someone who's passionate about tea in and of itself, the culture, history, my experience of it being like really non-dogmatic, almost a spiritual kind of a tangible spiritual experience, but also as like a mindfulness experience that I can offer to people. Like, you want a digital detox? Cool. Sit with me for tea for like an hour
Nice.
and watch that shit. Like watch how you do not reach for your phone because it's that immersive
Wow.
and it's so subtle and it's magic. I mean, it's really magical. And there's all the variables are important. The textures, the shapes, the colors. There's wood and there's clay and there's ceramics and yeah, it's amazing. And so if you check out imagesoftea.xyz, so there's a little plug there. You'll see.
I will do that.
You'll
Dude,
see.
seriously, you got me super interested.
Yeah.
Because
You'll see it there.
I feel pretty ignorant when it comes to tea. But I do have to mention, I found I I made sure that I was going to be drinking tea during this podcast because I think you sounds like you're usually drinking tea during your podcast. Or you're sharing tea
I've
with
been
somebody.
drinking tea for this
I
hour
sort
and
of
a half
assumed as much.
already.
I know it's. I'm sorry to say it, it's just Trader Joe's green tea, but I am
Hey
drinking tea.
man, it's your,
It-
yeah, the fact that you knew ahead of time I'm gonna do this, like sort of in the name of like,
of
yeah,
course, man.
that's the most important thing. And next time, like for the next chapter in our conversation, like maybe you'll be here in person, or I'll find myself down there, and like we'll do it over some puer, and it's a really good like rearrange. That's a good perspective shift.
That
For
sounds cool.
sure. Oh my God, there's so much more I want to talk about. And yet I really want to be mindful of time. I mean, it's already been about 90 minutes.
I could
How
probably,
are you on time?
it's really up to you. I could, you know what? If I could pause and use the restroom real quick, and I could probably do another 20 minutes, half an hour.
Well, the funny thing is, I have to get on a call in about 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So, not to rush you, but like if you want to jump off, use the loo. This is actually this is awesome. You're the first person in any of these conversations to pause, use the loo, come back, and then we'll sort of wrap it up. Or like wrap up.
Cool. Yeah, I don't want to interfere with the flow. I mean, I can also.
No.
Okay, give me
Let's do it.
Give me 60 seconds. All right.
You got
it.
Okay. This is cool, and I'm not going to edit this out because I think this pause is important. It's an important pause because it's really real. First and foremost. It may seem kind of like strange and very sort of Mr. Rogers-y to sort of like, now I'm just speaking to you, listener, for this 60 seconds. But I just wanted to note that this is the first time in the life of this show that this has happened, which I think is special. And as you, the listener, knows already, I don't edit this show. So this is an unscripted and real freeform and unedited moment, which I'm still proud about. And what else can I say? Sounds like we're back.
All right.
So cool.
Nice.
I also wanted two things I wanted to mention that are super meaningful to me. Number one, that was the first time that's ever happened in the show, which I think is super special to have that 60-second window. And number two, you're actually, I think you are the first Patreon supporter that I have for this show.
Awesome. I'm proud to support it, man. I really enjoy it.
And I am, I'm so grateful. And that's really been like a funny, sort of strange, kind of Stranger Things kind of experience for me is like how I want to move forward with this show, how I want to have it grow organically, maybe through sort of not member support, but like listener support, instead of like, I'm going to find some product to plug or something.
Right.
And that kind of more like sort of traditional ad sponsorship. So thank you, Ben Guerrette, for being my first Patreon supporter, because it's really meaningful to me, and it just helps helps the thing sustain itself, which is great.
You're welcome. I'm happy to support. I think it's, as someone who's always looked for support for the art that I do, I want to try and support as the artists that inspire me as much as possible.
Thank you. Wow. This is a funny moment because now my bladder's like, hey man, 90 minutes of tea, and like we gotta we have another phone call coming. Like we gotta get we gotta get on this. And as you know, like tea is such a fun diuretic that like beer, once your bladder starts, it's kind of just like, you don't just pee once, it's like a couple times. So, man, that being said, I just like right now I'm trying to think about one thing we could talk about for 5 minutes. It seems stupid to like, I want to like focus on like a thing for like this many units of time.
I hear you. I'm trying. I'm like,
but mean, we've gone to such really great moments already, and it's like, and there's so much more I want to ask you and inquire and like, and just touch on in like future conversations. I'm really kind of emphasizing like, this isn't like, you're not like a guest just once. I want to like have people come back and talk about different conversations, and maybe even like get more than one person in at the same time to like go over some. That'd be really cool to like have you and Joseph Cohen from Universe like riff on, you know, the sort of app creation experience.
Yeah, that'd be
Like that just popped in my head right now. Like
that'd be interesting. You know, it's always neat to talk to other creators, other entrepreneurs, and sort of hear what their, you know, what their goals are, and how they're trying to achieve those goals, and you know, the sort of the challenges of running a business, and I'm sure we could have some tidbits of, you know, advice for each other and so on and so forth. But yeah, that'd be interesting.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the things I actually wanted to sort of mention, I may have mentioned this, I feel like we talked about this briefly, maybe it was even over text, was that I'm super excited that you started a podcast. And I think because maybe you touch on some of the things that I've been interested in having conversations about. I've always thought it'd be interesting to start a podcast. And I think I'm coming from a place of maybe like the perspective from a male and a dad, and the sort of the trials and tribulations of that. I guess I don't think males express their feelings as much, and maybe could use conversation a little more often. And I think like if I was going to do a podcast, it would be maybe focused around that. Maybe like, hey, what's what kind of things are you dealing with as a dad right now that you're, or dad, or a spouse or a partner, or what kind of inner emotions are going on inside you that you're maybe feel vulnerable or uncomfortable to share, that you need to talk about. It's always
Maybe
been
this is a seed. Maybe this is a seed for like us. Maybe we should be co-hosts of like a dadcast.
Dadcast.
I mean, there. If you do some research and like come back to me on, I'm game. Like I've been wanting to start like a men's tea circle for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Like unsuccessfully. I mean, schedules, traveling, things like location, like all these. Like it'd be great to do one in person, but like, yeah, these like really real, vulnerable, constructive conversations can be had. Like space can be shared, not just in person, but like through this medium.
Yeah.
There are a couple of like dad oriented podcasts out there. Look at those and then get back to me, and then let's just like start one. It's like really this experience of making this podcast has been in actuality very fun and easy to start up, but like getting to starting was like a hard thing for me. Again, like I don't know if people want to talk to me. What am I going to talk about? Should there be a focus? I want to talk to like everyone about everything. You know, all those kinds of like, again, it's not just like, I'm not saying like I'm just sort of self-flagellating, but just trying to strategize like what is my value? You know, like what is my differentiator as a podcast? Because there are like 800 billion,
of course,
podcasts right out there. But a space for dads, or even dads to be like, I've been thinking about like sharing like our sort of birth story as like a way to like help dads or help incoming dads or things like that. I'm always thinking about how I can help.
Yeah.
Just help people like hold space, or like hear a story, share an anecdote, learn something. So yeah, please, more of that.
All right.
Let's do that.
That's motivating. I think, like you said, like the hardest part was starting.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was really curious. I was really curious on the sort of, you know, like the technical side of a podcast. I just had this vision of like, okay, we both have to have a microphone, like a nice microphone on either side of our computer. And then we're going to both record it, because we can't record the streaming conversation because that could break down. And what if the internet goes out? Like, there's all these things that just went through my head. But of course, there's a service that does it for you. So when you sent me the link, I was like, it's that easy? Wow.
There are many. This is just one. Zencastr is just one service. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big world. And there are like podcast conferences and expos, and gatherings. And it's a whole, all these industries. Like, it's so wild. But yeah, like I would love to like actually one of the things I still need to get even now, like 6 months later, is like a field recorder and like decent vocal mics. I have these like USB mics that I use. And like, as a listener, hopefully it doesn't sound like garbage.
No, the quality sounds pretty good. Like from what I've heard on your end.
Yeah. And this is like, a $30 Amazon USB condenser mic. So it's doable, like on a tight budget. What you end up paying for is like subscribing to this service to, to have whatever, paying for bandwidth or those kinds of things.
Right.
But we're like hosting the show. Like I host the show on SoundCloud. So I pay SoundCloud like, I don't know, $16 a month to host all the episodes. There are different avenues, but it's totally doable.
Well, that's good to know. I don't know. Now I'm motivated.
There you go. The seed has been planted.
Yes.
And for me, like I'm focusing right now, like on partnerships and like doing things with others, having been a freelancer for years and being like I've used this like really cliched metaphor of like, I've been like, like Chewbacca without a Han Solo in the design world, or as like a parent, like I need, like I'm game for joining forces and seeing what happens in partnership and collaboration. So
I think having somebody to hold you accountable for the things you want to do is super important, and it helps push both of you. Like, like the creative stuff, the creative sort of light installation stuff I do is, I'm only half of that. My Kyle Stewart, who is somebody I also work with at Pixite, is my partner there, and we push each other, and it's super helpful. Like, because it's I don't think we would have sort of produced as many projects that we produced so far, and explored as many ideas as we've had without on our own. And we're both exploring ideas individually, and then we're like, oh, wait a minute, hey, I got this thing. What do you think about it? And then it grows into something you weren't expected, and that part's exciting.
Yeah, amazing, and seemingly so natural.
Yeah,
as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, partnerships are not a necessity, but can be very helpful in achieving a goal.
Exactly. Well, let it be known that this. All right,
it's on record.
I think it's on record. So that's it. We're holding each other accountable today.
All right.
And again, thank you for the time and the space.
Thank you.
And the voyage, the odyssey of the conversation. And I can't wait for the next one, or just for the beginning of our show.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like that's it.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Really fun. Man. I think you fulfilled my podcast dreams.
Yay. I'm happy to happy to be the what is it, the arbiter, bringer?
Yeah, something like that.
I think this tea is finally starting
facilitator.
to get me. A facilitator, thank you. All right, onwards and forwards. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Bye. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. It was in depth, and I can't wait for our next chat. And I'll definitely let you know any news about our future dad-oriented podcast. Have no idea what it's going to be called or when it will begin.
but the seed was planted, as you heard. So check out Ben on Instagram at Ben Guerrette. I'll write that down in the comments as well for spelling. You could also check out his other creative outputs, namely Luminal, which also has an Instagram handle. But if you go to luminal.com, that's LUMINUL.com, also at luminal_creative, to see more visual art through lighting design. And if you want to check out Pixite apps, go check them out on Instagram at PIXITEAPPS. Download their apps. They're incredible for all kinds of reasons. And again, check out Patreon at patreon.com/wabi-sabi podcast. And for more info on where else you can stream the show, go to wabi-sabi podcast.xyz. Thanks.